Okay.
Anyway. So we still have people arriving.
Yeah, that's right at 7:30. Give a couple minutes. Maybe to start, while we're waiting for others to come in, why don't we say our names so we can get to know each other in our Sangha? Maybe starting in the room with the person to my left, to Damien's right, with this hoodie on, I think. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear it?
No.
Is it Stefan?
Stefan, okay, thank you.
Damien?
Okay.
Pablo?
Pablo.
Nayara?
Nayada, okay, welcome.
Doris?
Doris.
Maybe you can raise your hand. Cesar? Javier?
Javier.
Virginia?
Virginia, okay, welcome back.
Alicia's at the door, and some people are walking in.
Okay, and then online.
And Carlos.
Yeah, hello, Carlos. Thank you, Carlos, for your service. Online, we have Gore, and Ricardo.
That's right.
So we have Patricia walking in.
Patricia, hello, welcome back.
And Alicia is guarding the door.
Guarding. She's the door woman. Or the door, yeah, because it's a door man.
More people walking
door
in.
woman.
¿Cómo te llama? What's your name, please? Sorry? Ooh. Maybe you can say your name to the microphone here so that Jim knows you.
Milad, it's Milad.
Milad. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome.
Not there, but maybe here or something. Yeah, there.
And Lara, we were just going around and saying our names. If you want to say your name into the room.
I am Lara.
It's to identify your accent.
Very good. I'm Argentinian in Italy.
Yeah, that's why your accent is like Californian, I think.
Oh, still someone at the door.
Yeah.
See if I can pin Jim.
I like the arrangement of the zabutons because almost everybody, I'm assuming everybody is in the range of the camera.
That was our aim, more or less.
Of course, if there are people outside of it, I wouldn't know. So
We try to fit them all into the camera angle.
we have a new person. Inaki is on. Do you want to announce yourself to the room, Nacho?
Hi there, how you doing?
Good. That's Nacho. In case you don't know anybody, he's our. Besides being a yoga teacher at Saladani, also is our gestor, our manager. So Alethea is back, right?
Yeah, and we still have someone at the door.
So we're going to continue to talk about. Very good. Okay. I recognize you, but I have already forgotten your name. That's terrible, but I need to hear it 50 times.
Imma.
Ima.
Ima.
That's
Sakurada.
welcome back. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So the only good part for me about leading the group from afar is I don't have to wear a mask. But other than that, I'd much rather be there. Saladana, thanks for coming. So over the last week and a half or so, we've been talking about the Four Noble Truths, which, Carlos, I meant to ask you this, but on the placard, is the Four Noble Truths up? Yes, thank you, Carlos. And this is really fundamental Buddhism, agreed upon by really all schools of Buddhism, that it was taught by the Buddha. And we've been working or talking about the first noble truth, the truth of what is called dukkha, which is a Pali word, I believe also a Sanskrit word, a Pali word, the early Indian language that the Buddha is alleged to have taught in, or that at least the teachings were written down in, to mean like unsatisfactoriness, I don't want to say pleasantness, but unsatisfactoriness all the way to suffering. So kind of the whole range of stress, anxiety, mild irritation, to, downright suffering, like what's going on in Ukraine right now, dukkha. And the idea, I believe, is if we really get to know dukkha, if we really get to understand it and its cause, we can then liberate ourselves from it. That we don't understand or know is very hard to be free of, because it'll be somewhere in our denial, right? In our shadow or something. So the idea is to really get to know it. And there are other benefits as well. If we really get to know it within ourselves, we can be compassionate with others as they experience dukkha and so forth. So one reason we meditate, which we're going to do here in a minute, is to understand dukkha. And much of the dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness, the suffering, arises because of the mind. The behaviors of the mind, the habits of the mind, the tendencies of the mind, these cause dukkha. They cause suffering. So when we're meditating, you could say that one of the ideas is to observe the mind, and we all should have this ability to observe observe even our own thoughts, observe our mind, observe the tendencies of our mind. Now, it's not something that we, in our normal day-to-day life, spend much time doing because we're down in the trenches. Excuse me. Turn that off. And I think I'll turn you guys off too as well for now. Most of the time throughout our day, we're not observing, we are thinking. We're either lost in thought, right? Daydreaming, planning, worrying, whatever. Or we might actually be aware of our thoughts where we're consciously thinking, trying to make a decision or whatever it is. But usually we're in a thinking mind mode. Either the default mode of just random thoughts, or we're actually concentrating on something. But not very often are we just observing, where we're in a place of no thinking really, and more our five sensory, our senses, or the mind door. In Buddhism, we have six senses. That sixth sense in the mind, where we're just observing our thoughts, or observing, being aware, just observing the sensations in our body, observing the sounds that enter into our ears. And the way one of my teachers put it, the Buddha knew, he understood the mind very well, and he understood that we're often in the mind and it's just going and going and going and doing its thing. And he knew that if we could interrupt, right, if we could stop the mind, the thinking mind, even for a short bit of time, it had transformative benefits. And lately, I've just put it kind of this way: the less I think, the happier I am. Yesta. It's like that simple. It's that simple. Or as one of my friends who was a comedian, and she made a play, a one-woman play about her trip to India. And one of the lines in the play is the Indians would say to her, whenever she'd say, I think we should do this, or I think we should do this, or, you know, whatever, they'd say, don't think, bad for health. And that's pretty much it, right? It's at least bad for our mental and emotional and spiritual health if we think too much. So, in the meditation that we're going to do here, what I'd like to invite you to do, first we'll spend some time just getting centered, trying to get into that observing place, using the body and the breath. And then in the last 10 minutes or so, I invite you to try to observe your thoughts. Now, you might find that if you can actually look right at them, they will disappear. They will hide, almost for sure. It's very difficult to look right at thoughts and they stay there. They tend to hide. But if you kind of look at them maybe a little bit at an angle, or maybe from below or above or something like that, I don't know if it works quite like that, but it seems like it does, you might be able to observe your thoughts and just notice them. You know, what are they like? What is your mind thinking about? Don't get lost in the details. You know, maybe a one-word label: planning, worrying, regretting, fantasizing, imagining, you know, maybe something like that. So just to summarize, so we're going to do just our usual samadha, centering, stabilizing practice to kind of get us into that observing place. And then in the final, 8 or 10 minutes, then we'll try to pay a special attention to any thoughts that arise. Any questions? No? Okay. Well, good. So let's find our comfortable postures. So for those of you who don't know, we usually go about 31 minutes or so. Gives you plenty of time to center yourself and notice your thoughts.
Jim, maybe
Yes.
you can, for some people who are here for the first time, maybe explain posture or something like that.
Okay. Okay. I see a lot of good postures. If there is anybody, why don't you raise your hand if you're new? Anybody new? So we have one there is new. So that posture that you have there, yeah, that would be an unusual meditation posture. Also, the other gentleman who raised his hand. Oh, that looked pretty good, pretty quick. Okay, now a typical recommended posture is kind of like a 3-pointed, or some people will say actually 4. So I wouldn't have that. See if you could bring, so it was Stefan, and then I already forgot your name, but yeah, you.
Pablo.
So try to bend one of your legs and push and have it rest fully on the floor. And then see if you can put the other one in front of it and also flat on the floor.
Las rodillas aquí y a lo mejor un pie delante del otro. Entonces, elevando.
Parece bien, como, ¿qué tal? ¿Te duele o está bien? Ok, parece bien. Sí, es posible. Esta postura se llama la postura de Brahmania, cuando las piernas están como ya.
So people are getting cushions to support their knees, legs.
Wow, there's bird sounds and music.
Should be like that for 15 minutes. Should be like that for 13 minutes.
You comfortable?
Carlos, do you hear that sound?
No, not hearing any sounds. No. Is that at your place?
Oh,
Do you have birds?
now you know what it is? I accidentally picked an ambient sound on my phone.
We're not hearing them here, the sounds.
Waves, ocean waves. Wow, that was cool. All right.
All right, I think more or less we have stable posture here. So
Okay. Try again here. Here we go. So yeah, we want to find a comfortable and stable posture. Both are equally important. That it be comfortable, you're not struggling to hold the posture, to maintain the posture, and that it be stable. So you're not moving around, you don't fall over or something. Now, the posture itself makes for an excellent anchor for our awareness, for our attention. So, why don't we just go straight to the body and feel it from the inside out. Preferably in this practice, we generally close our eyes. Sight is the most distracting of the senses. About 60%, they say, of our attention goes to sight. So we close our eyes to eliminate those kinds of distractions. Some practices, they do keep the eyes open, but ours generally closed. Just try to find sensations in your body. Queremos encontrar sensaciones corporales, sensaciones dentro del cuerpo, los brazos, piernas, pies, manos, lo que sea. Anytime that we can become aware of the sensations in our body, we are present. We are mindful, so long as there's no greed or aversion. So we just feel this posture, feel this body. Maybe you notice the weight of it. Maybe you notice points of contact where the body touches the floor or the cushion or the chair. There might be tingling, tickling, hormigueos. Might be flujos, corrientes de energía. And there might be nothing really. That's okay too. You just notice the nothing. Now you may have already noticed that the body is breathing and that the breath causes movement in the body, the belly rising and falling. Sometimes the whole body even moves slightly with the breath. You may notice sensation at the nostrils, tickling, or in the nostrils. So I invite you to bring the breath, the sensations of the breath, into what we call the foreground, the primer plano, and allow the body, sensations in the body or sounds, to just remain in the background. Don't push them away. Don't try to block them out. They're there, but you're not paying attention to them, paying attention to the breath. You can either follow the breath through its entire journey, follow the breath in the whole body, or you can pick a spot that you like. Only the belly, only the nostrils, only the chest. Since we want to center the mind, pick one and try to stay with it. Don't wander around. And then when your mind wanders away with thought, which it will do many, many times, when we notice it, we just come back to the breath. Bring our attention back to the breath. No problem. No judging, criticizing. It's all part of the practice. If you want to count your breaths as a supportive technique, you can count exhalations up to 5 maybe, or 10 if you're experienced. Start again if you reach 10, start again if you get lost. Or you can label breathing in, breathing out. Do one or the other, don't do both, counting and labeling. So I'll be quiet now and we'll just practice coming back to the breath and following the breath, experiencing the breath, observing the breath. if you are still experiencing lots of thought, maybe some agitation or jumpy mind or something, you might drop back into the body. Let go of the breath for a bit and just go back to feeling your body. Feeling any sensations in the body, including emotions, stress, nervousness, anxiety. Just feel it all if you can. And then if you start to get a sense of being more collected, go back to the breath. But it's okay also to just stay with the body. It's a perfectly acceptable anchor. Now, if you're willing, I invite you to pay attention to your thoughts. By this I mean we continue to follow the breath, and then when a thought arises, we stay with it for just a moment to get a sense of what it was about. Maybe we label it, and then we go back to the breath. So maybe you're following the breath, and then a thought arises about what are you going to do tomorrow? So maybe you label it planning, and then go back to the breath. Or maybe a thought arises, boy, did I hurt that person's feelings today? And then you label it worry. Go back to the breath. Just like that. Don't feed the thoughts. Just stay with them long enough to label them. Then go back to the breath or to the body if you're using the body. One common thought that I think is worth mentioning is judging. You notice your mind judging. You just label it judging. Go back to the breath. So, thank you for that. So, in these final moments, let's return to the body, bringing our attention back into the posture, back into the form. Feeling any new sensation, maybe, might even be some discomfort, pain, tingling. And then bringing your attention, your awareness to your heart space. We'll end with a little gratitude practice. So feeling the heart space, the chest area, and then mentally thanking yourself for practicing in this way, for the goodness of your practice, for coming here today, whether it's physically at Saladana or on Zoom or YouTube. This is not easy for some people. This can be very challenging, and congratulating yourself for coming. And then taking this gratitude, this recognition, and thanking the others around you or on Zoom, YouTube. Thank them for their practice mentally in your mind, for supporting your practice, and then taking this goodwill, this appreciation, this gratitude, sending it out in all directions, just as if it could just radiate out from your physical form. And when you hear the sound of the bell, just noticing again what kind of thoughts come up or feelings come up in the body. Okay. Well, thank you all. We might have lost somebody, maybe. I don't know. There's a chair. Was that chair occupied before? I can't remember now. Well, anyways, you guys are here. You know, I find these practices where we look more closely, like looking closely at the mind. What is the mind thinking about? You know, what kind of thoughts arise? It often seems like when I do that, there are less thoughts. It's almost like the closer looking detours, right? The thought. They still come, but it seems like not as frequently or as strongly. And my favorite ones I could tell were like planning. So like, what am I going to say next? Right? So my mind is planning on what I might say during the meditation, or what am I going to say after the meditation. So that was a pretty common thought pattern for me. Debating whether I should say a little bit in Spanish. You know, this always comes up because I worry sometimes people might not understand all my English. It's a lot of words. So I might debate, right? Which you could call planning. You could also kind of call it worrying, right? It's kind of like worrying or just making decisions. As one of my teachers told me, she said to me, she says, Jim, decisions agitate the mind. I'd never thought of that, but gosh, they sure can, right? What am I going to do today? What am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do for the rest of my life? You know, these things agitate the mind. The mind is not settled and stable and calm when we're trying to make decisions. And some of us, you know, we might hash out a decision 50, 100, 1,000 times in our mind. These are forms of dukkha, right? This is this is suffering. So what I thought I would do, though, to create a little more structure is go to Joseph Goldstein's book on mindfulness, where he has a good chapter on the First Noble Truth, and pluck out a few of the things that he writes and the quotes of the Buddha that he has in there. But you know what? Why don't we do first a little walking meditation? I did notice a little bit of, you know, kind of anxiety. I don't know what it was. Movement in the room. So maybe some actual movement might be the way to go. So for those of you who are new, walking meditation, it's just another form of being present where our anchor or our object is our feet touching the ground. So instead of focusing on the breath or focusing on the body sensations, we're just going to focus on this particular sensation, which is the feet touching the ground. And we want to keep it simple. You know, you don't want to wander around the room or anything. Just pick like a 2-meter long path and then walk from one end of it very slowly, turn around and walk back. And I would say for those of you who are in the room, walk towards the mural or you know, the TV. Don't walk this way and, you know, and then we'll get some kind of Greek traffic jam going on or something. Let's just go this way. And we'll do that for about 6 minutes, and then I'll ring the bell, and then we'll talk a little bit more about dukkha from Joseph Goldstein's book. Where is my 6-minute one? I gotta make one. I'm going to walk as well. Thank you all. Thank you for your practice, coming back, being willing to try new things. So first, I think what I'll do, I'm going to share a screen, especially for those on Zoom, because they can't see the placard, just to remind us about the Four Noble Truths, which hopefully, if I click that, let's see, almost, there we go. So you guys can see that, right? Four Noble Truths. So just real quick summary. Most of you I know them. So the first truth is the truth of dukkha, which is what we've been talking about, this dissatisfaction, this suffering. The second truth is the truth of the cause of dukkha, right? Samudaya, tanha being the underlining cause, craving, addiction, wanting. Third noble truth is the cessation of dukkha, the end of dukkha, which can be obtained by following the path to the cessation of suffering called the Noble Eightfold Path. So those are your 4 noble truths. Now we are going to go to Mr. Goldstein's book, which we have been using for all of COVID, I think, 2 years, well, even before, but online like this. So now he's got a lot of stuff here, and we're only going to just do a summary. But what I do want to, go through this is a Buddhist perspective. It doesn't mean it's the only perspective, but it can be very helpful, especially if you don't even have a perspective on it. Might as well adopt theirs. So there are three types of dukkha. So the first one is the dukkha of painful experience. So this is just something we all experience. And really, I think of the invasion of Ukraine by Russia is a perfect example, right, of dukkha. In fact, he even mentions war and violence right here, right, as obvious forms of suffering, obvious forms of dukkha. So this is one kind. This is the most inevitable kind. I mean, we're all going to experience pain in some form in our life. It's just unavoidable. He talks about the inevitable pain of the body, but then there's also, he calls them optional. I sometimes wonder how optional they are, but they're the suffering in the mind, feelings of fear, jealousy, anger, hatred, anxiety, grief, envy, frustration, loneliness. These are all dukkha, and we all feel them at some points in our life, right? The optional part is, yes, if you are a fully enlightened being, an arhat, then maybe they're more optional. But for many of us, they seem pretty much unavoidable. They're called these afflictive emotions. Afflictive emotions. So that's part of the pain group. The second group is experiencing, or the way we experience dukkha is by not understanding the changing nature of all things. And so I recently, as some of you know, I've been traveling between Madrid and Paris. Madrid and Paris. I've done this now 3 or 4 times over the last 6, 7, 8 months. And for a while there, my mind, I would have a pleasant experience in Paris, or a pleasant experience in Madrid, and my mind would want to grasp it and hold on to it. Okay, this is the one. You want to stay here in Paris, or you want to stay here in Madrid because you feel good. This is it. You found it. Well, guess what? In a minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, that feeling is gone. It's completely been replaced by something else. The changing nature of life, right? But we forget. We think, oh, if I just get all this stuff put together, if I just clean my house just right, if I just put away all the dishes or whatever, then I'm going to be fine. Yeah, for like a minute or whatever. Everything is constantly changing. This quote right here is one of the most commonly quoted sayings by the Buddha. Whatever has the nature to arise will also pass away. This can be a very helpful teaching for you, for me, for us. If something arises, like a thought, then it will pass away. Guaranteed. It's assured. So even if these afflictive emotions arise, the fear and the grief and the anger and the anxiety and the loneliness, even when those things arise, we sometimes think they're going to last forever. If you're one who kind of suffers from depression, we think it's going to last forever. But if it has the nature to arise, it will also pass away. It is changing. It is of a changing nature. So this is the second group. He talks a lot about this. I'm not going to go into every little maybe I am going to do this one right here. So when they're in blue, I try to put the quotes of the Buddha in blue, just so we can identify them from the quotes of other people or Joseph himself. So this is the Buddha speaking. He says, bhikkhus. Bhikkhus means like followers, practitioners. It also could be translated as beggars, because the monks back then and even now, they begged for their food. Bhikkhus, there are these 5 themes, 5 themes that should often be reflected upon by a woman or a man, by a householder, or one gone forth. One gone forth is one who has entered into the stream of awakening. What 5, he said? I am subject to old age. I am not exempt from old age. That definitely applies to me. I just turned 65. I am officially old. I am subject to old age. 2, I am subject to illness. I am not exempt from illness. I am subject to death. I am not exempt from death. 4, I must be parted from everyone and everything dear and agreeable to me. Wow. I'm going to be parted, separated from everyone and everything dear and agreeable to me. And the 5th one is I am the owner of my karma, the heir of my karma, having karma as my origin, karma as my relative, karma as my resort. I will be the heir of whatever karma, good or bad, that I do. So these 5 reflections are something that are chanted even to this day, like in Southeast Asia, in monasteries, and even by lay people. And it's specific to these 5 things, but one thing I think that's also important for us to remember, because we often think that we're alone when we're feeling some of these afflictive emotions. We might feel sad, we might even feel depressed. We feel this sense of separation, like it's only me. But the Buddha, one of the things he was pointing at is, no, it applies to everyone. You are not alone. We all are subject to old age, illness, and death. That's just unavoidable. We're all subject to our karma, and we're all going to be separated from things that are dear to us, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. This drives this point home even more, so maybe I'll read this one as well. Also by the Buddha. Bhikkhus, for the instructed noble disciple, which is what you guys are, right? We're instructed noble disciple. What is subject to old age grows old. when this happened, one reflects thus: I am not the only one for whom what is subject to old age grows old. I'm not the only one. 2, I'm not the only one who is subject to illness, grows ill. Who is subject to illness grows ill. I'm not the only one. Now, maybe you didn't get COVID, but you got some other kind of illness, and you will get other kinds. I'm not the only one for whom what is subject to death dies. We're all going to die. I'm not the only one for whom what is subject to destruction is destroyed. So we all lose something. And I'm not the only one for whom what is subject to loss is lost. Sometimes this can be helpful to remind ourselves, because sometimes when we're in we're spiraling downward, with some kind of afflictive emotion, whether it be sadness or fear or loneliness or whatever, we think we're truly alone and no one else is touched by this. So now I'm going to move ahead. Lots of words, but good stuff. I'm going to move to this third one because I think this is quite important. The dukkha of conditioned experience. This is a very broad category, you might call it, because conditioned existence, I said experience, I meant to say existence. Conditioned experience is the experience of being a human being. There's no exception to this until or unless, siempre y cuando, we reach full awakening. Until that happens, everything is conditioned experience. Every experience that we have is conditioned, meaning causes and conditions come together and then something happens. And so, for whatever reason, the way God or nature or whoever put us together, they've made us to survive. Whatever it is, it has created a being and beings to survive, to propagate, to have more of them, to not perish. And in our particular case, as humans, some of our survival instincts create dukkha, such as anxiety. Anxiety touches us all. Some people may have more anxiety than others, but everybody experiences anxiety. It is part of being a human being. We are an anxious creature, and it's to stay alive. If we were too kicked back, shit would happen, and we would die. And then, maybe our species would go extinct. Now, Joseph, he brings up a funny, instead of a human example, he uses the example of certain kinds of male birds. Right here, male birds. Okay, whoops. He goes, what they do to attract a mate. Where did I go? I lost my page. Right. He goes, so some birds, the male, does an amazing mating dance with feather displays and even nest building competitions where it builds a nest, competes with other birds. This is so that it will attract a mate and propagate the genes. So this is an example of that poor male bird, has to go through all this work and do all this kind of stuff, has to be like perfect in order to get a mate. Well, sometimes us human beings, we think the same, right? We have to be perfect or nobody's going to love us. We're going to be alone forever. All right. He goes on and talks a little bit more about what dukkha is. Here, let's see. Basically, I'm not going to read all this, but basically, dukkha arises pretty much everywhere. Everywhere. Even if something wonderful happens. You know, and maybe I beat this one to death, but I often use the joke of Real Madrid, the football team, right? Real Madrid won. You know, I come from a family of sports lovers. And when their team wins, or our team, my family members are happy for about a minute or maybe two. You know, and when their teams lose, they're miserable for like a week. It's like, what kind of deal is that, right? You get so into these sports teams, you invest so much of yourself into the sports team, they win, and then you're happy for maybe 5 minutes. But if they lose, you're miserable for a week. That doesn't sound like a very good deal. But much of the world makes those kind of investments. It's funny, I got something. Oh, there we go. Do I want to read that one? That one's kind of sad. Oops. Okay, but why don't we try this one? Then I'll end with Joseph. So again, this is the Buddha. It's pretty long. Let me make sure I can. Well, it's very long. No, I'm not going to read it. It's too long. Too long. Maybe instead we have a few more minutes. I'll open it up. Are there any questions, or does anybody want to share about their experience of dukkha in their life, or their thoughts that happened that came up during the meditation? Any themes? Any common thought patterns? Okay, Damien. Yeah, tell me.
Why don't you speak into the seat?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. Hopefully, everybody can.
Just when you said after the meditation that you kind of found that sometimes, when you're trying to focus on your thoughts, that you don't have as many. And I think that was how I found the meditation today, which was good. Because particularly over the last week, there's a lot of thinking going on. So, mentioned what's happening in Ukraine, and it can be kind of hard to stop yourself. And often, when I'm meditating, it's a real challenge to stop, or not stop thinking, but to come back to the breath.
Yeah.
Today, I found it actually quite very, very good in that sense that I was able to stay with breath a lot better, and somehow less thoughts were coming up, strangely, today. I don't know how that fits in the dukkha, really, but it was something that
Well,
I kind of know. Maybe there was less.
Yeah, and then even, and I'm going to make a spin on this. Did everybody online? Were we able to hear Damien about how today he had less so he was just commenting how normally it's very difficult to let go of the thoughts, and today he was able to let go of them a little, better, more time, not thinking today. And then he was wondering how that ties into dukkha. And one way it ties into dukkha is, okay, so you had what you might call a more pleasant experience, maybe it was a little more relaxed experience or whatever, and that is conditioned on certain causes and conditions that exist here in this moment, and almost for sure it's going to pass. I mean, it will. If it arose, it will pass. And so when we lose something we like, that's dukkha, right? Because like maybe the next time you sit or the time after that, it isn't going to be like that. You're going to be back to thinking the whole time, and then that's going to be unsatisfying, and you're going to be kind of bummed, and then you're going to have dukkha. So even in the good stuff, dukkha is just lurking around the corner, just waiting to show its face. Yeah, losing that we want, right? I mean, when I did that long retreat 2 years ago, I came out of it with this pleasant buzz in my body that lasted for like 6 months. I mean, it was so nice. And I'm like, what the hell is this? I was asking my mentor and stuff, and guess what? It went away. Eventually it went away. Slowly but surely it went away, but then now it's gone. Dukkha. Anyone else have anything to say? Or Lara, please.
Yeah, it's a question. How do you manage, like in theory, dukkha, I get it. But when you are in dukkha, when you are in a period of anxiety or deep fear, the full understanding of dukkha, not the full, sorry, the aspects that we saw are actually even more upsetting and more, everything is even more overwhelming. How, like, eventually what I end up doing is I distract myself, because it's easier to distract myself intentionally than to remain with that pain that is too overwhelming. I'm thinking of the war now, for example, like these big things, big waves that we might go through at times in life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know very well how to go about this.
Well, I mean, it very well could be your distraction is a wholesome action. I mean, if it's too intense and you're not able to be mindful with what's arising in you at that moment, then by all means do a distraction. I mean, hopefully you don't, drink a bottle of vodka or something, but a wholesome distraction can be healthy until you're ready, and then we go back. What I'm kind of making up, there might be a bit of second arrow stuff in there where, right? Where so you're feeling bad, or your mind is obsessing about the war and the injustice of the war and the tragedy of the war, and then you're thinking, I meditate and I follow the Buddhist practice. Why am I having these thoughts? And now you've created a second kind of issue, which we could call the second arrow, right? Mm-hmm. The first arrow is the war in Ukraine. We're all suffering from that. I mean, if you think about it, it's suffering. Maybe people are not paying attention to it at all, but that's the first arrow. And then if we want that to be different, I shouldn't be bothered by it, I should not care, or whatever, that's a second arrow. Now we've shot ourselves twice, right? And so we be mindful of the second arrow. I have some expectation around this, or I have some wanting around this, and just be kind to ourselves around that second one. Because of course, I mean, learning, studying, practicing Buddhism or whatever path you're on, it's going to change how you think. There's no question. And it's going to create expectation, because this is what happens. We get expectation and we think, I should be able to blah, blah, blah. But the point is that we want to just be with things as they are in the end. And so sometimes we got to notice the second arrow, or sometimes we have to notice even the third arrow. Pretty soon we're like shooting all these arrows at ourselves. We just stop and just notice. And maybe Jose Manuel, when he teaches, he often tells people to smile when they notice they've been thinking. And it's very good advice. Same thing with with these arrows. Just smile. There I go again, expecting to be perfect or expecting whatever. Yeah, well, thank you. Well, now we just got a couple minutes, so why don't we do a metta meditation? And if it's okay, for the second group, the benefactor, we call it, I'm going to use the people of the Ukraine, okay? We could send them some goodwill. So for those of you who are new, I'm going to offer 4 phrases that you can say mentally. And these are phrases of goodwill, of good wishes. And first we'll start with ourselves, then the people of the Ukraine, and then a difficult person, Putin, or somebody not so difficult as Putin, and then all beings. I often put my hands again on this chest area just to feel it, remind myself where my heart is. So I'll say a phrase and then you can say it to yourself mentally. May I be happy. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease. And now the people of Ukraine. May they be happy. May they be well. May they be safe. May they live with ease. And now the difficult person or difficult being. So you could go all out, let it be Vladimir Putin, or you could just have someone in your life who maybe hurt your feelings or caused a little resentment. I'm going to go with Putin. May he be happy. It's a tough one, I admit. May he be happy. May he be well. May he be safe. May he live with ease. And lastly, we'll do all beings in all directions without exception. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. And then finally, in the spirit of renunciation, generosity, letting go, the tradition held by Buddhists going back 2,600 years, we'll offer up the merit of our practice today, the teachings, our Buddha nature, the Sangha, offer this up to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war, violence, discrimination, racism, free from coronavirus. And may all beings find their truths, find their path, find their way to the end of suffering. May all beings be free. Well, thank you all very much for coming. Good to see you. Just a couple quick announcements. First about dana or generosity. This is how the Buddha and his followers have operated economically for 2,600 years, where they offer the teachings freely, the monks did, and the communities around them would then feed them and so forth. So there was a reciprocal arrangement of giving, of generosity. So we try to do the same at Saladana, where we offer the teachings freely, and there's no cover charge or any sort of entry fee or anything like that. and it feels great. I have to tell you, the feeling of giving is quite amazing. And you also can practice generosity, dana. And so you can do it a couple ways. One is to help us clean up, especially there in the room. You guys, if you don't want to clean up your houses on Zoom or whatever, that's fine. In Saladana, if you could help clean up, make sure the zabutans and zafus and everything are organized and so forth. And then you can also leave a financial donation, which there's a box in the entrada there where you could put some money in the slot there that I made, which is not perfectly straight, but it works. And then you can also make a transferencia. The information is on the bulletin board or on our website, or a BISM donation. All is appreciated. And for other classes, more than half goes to the teachers, so that's very important. And then also we have our first retreat coming up in May. We are going to be blessed by the presence of a Theravadan monk who is a Mexican American and speaks in Spanish as well as English better than mine. And he's going to be with us from May 23rd to May 27th. We'll be residential retreat in Galapagos, and then on Saturday on the 28th he'll be at Saladana. So that information will come out on our website here probably in a week, and I hope you guys all sign up. Thank you, Carlos. Nacho would like to say something. Yes, Nacho, please.
Yes, I wanted to say that the Sunday, 20th of March, in 2 weeks, we are having an online retreat with Bhante Bodhidhamma. I think that you have the information in some papers at the door next to the box. So if anyone is interested, just let me know.
Okay, thank you, Nacho. We should get that on the website somehow. Let's talk about that tomorrow. Okay, and often people go out to vegetarian dinner afterwards. Again, those in Saladana, you guys at home, you might have vegetarian also at home. Anyway, so good to see you. Sorry I can't be there presencial, but hopefully I'll see you all again online next week. Take care.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.